Now that we've learned how to do the distributive property and work with the distributive property, we can now take it a step further and we can talk about how to simplify expressions using the distributive property and what we learned about combining like terms, okay? So when you have to simplify and use the distributive property, it's going to make you do several things kind of at once, okay? So what I'm going to help you with is how to organize it so that it won't be as difficult, okay? So the thing you have to remember anytime that you're simplifying an expression or just regular numbers is the order of operations is going to come into play here, okay? And so now everybody remembers it differently. I remembered it as, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Other people remember it as PEMDAS. Any way you remember it, you just have to make sure that you know what it stands for, okay? And it tells you exactly what this says, the order that you're supposed to do the operations, okay? And so the first one, the P stands for parentheses. So parentheses, you're going to simplify, like if you have parentheses and there's something that'll simplify inside of the parentheses, you do that. The next one, exponents, is if you have an exponent and something will simplify, that's being brought to that power, you'll simplify that. Then you'll multiply and divide, anything that needs to be multiplied and divided, and then you'll add and subtract, okay? And so with these problems, that will still apply, all right? So other than that, it's just a matter of using the stuff that we've talked about the last few days in class, all right? So let's get right into examples. If I had to simplify this, I'm going to look at my parentheses and I'm going to look inside of them and see if anything will simplify. Well, none of these are like terms inside the parentheses, so I can't do anything with those. I do have exponents, but these won't simplify. Like x squared, I can't actually simplify that. Now, if it was like 3 squared, I could, right? 3 squared is 9. But because these, you can't actually simplify, you can just skip over these first two things. Then we're going to look to see, is there anything that needs to be multiplied or divided? And so that brings in kind of what we talked about in the last lesson with the distributive property. This x squared, you'll notice, is outside of this parentheses and there's nothing between them, which means you're multiplying. And so that means you're going to distribute this to just what it's beside. Don't distribute it to everything. You only distribute it to what it's beside. So you're going to be taking this x squared times the x, and then the x squared times the 1. And then if you look over here, you've got another kind of situation happening where you have this negative x. Remember, don't ignore the sign in front of whatever it is. And then it doesn't have anything between this and that parentheses. So that means you're supposed to take this negative x and distribute it to this. And there's 2 things inside that parentheses, so you're going to distribute it to each one of those. So we're going to do both of those at the same time, all right? So x squared times x, remember when you're multiplying like bases, you add their exponents, so it'd be x squared times x to the first, 2 plus 1 is 3, so you get x to the third. Then you take the x squared times the 1, so x squared times 1 would be x squared, and so it's a positive x squared, and so it just comes over, okay? And so that's that part. So now let's go ahead and do this part. So we have negative x times x squared, and again, if you want to take it to the side like we did in the last lesson and write it out piece by piece, that's totally fine, okay? So it's like a negative 1 right here. So negative 1 in front of that. So it'd be like negative 1 times a 1 is right here. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. And then x times x squared, remember there's a little 1 right there. So it'd be, you add the exponents, x to the third. Then we have to take the negative x times the negative 1. So negative 1 technically times negative 1. Negative times a negative is a positive. And so that'd be a positive 1. And then x times, well, there's nothing over here, so it just comes down, okay? And then that's the distributive part, okay? So we've done the multiplication part. Then after that, there's nothing being divided here. We're going to add and subtract. And so when you add and subtract, that brings in the combining like terms like we talked about the other day. And so you're going to look for which terms have the same last name, or the last parts of them are the same. So This is an x to the third term. Are there any other x to the third terms? Well, there's one right here. So this one is going to combine with that one, okay? And so x to the third minus x to the third, well, that's like a 1 minus 1. Think about what 1 minus 1 is. That's 0. So those actually will go away. So if you get a 0 in front of the last name of it, then that means it goes away. So it cancels out, okay? And so those will go away. The x squared and the x, those are not like terms, and so you can't combine them. So what's going to happen is you're just going to bring those down. And then those won't combine, and it's already in standard form, so we're good. Okay, so that one is just kind of an introduction to it. So let's do another one. So let's say that we have this one right here. Again, you go through the steps. Is there anything inside the parentheses that'll simplify? None of these are like terms within the same parentheses, so we can't do that. None of the exponents will simplify, and so we'll kind of keep moving. We do have multiplication because notice like this negative 2m is in front of that whole parentheses. So that means I have to, and there's nothing between them, right? So that means I have to distribute that to that whole parentheses. So I'm going to be taking the negative 2m times the 3m, the negative 2m times the negative 4m squared, and then the negative 2m times the 1. Oh, I got a little misaligned there, times the 1. And then this one, notice, is right in front of this parentheses, and there's nothing between them. So that means you have to distribute this to everything in that parentheses, and there's only 2 terms, so I'm going to do that. All right, so let's get started. So we've got this times the 3m. So negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. M times m is m squared. Remember, you add the exponents. So that's that one. Now we take negative 2m times the negative 4m squared. So numbers first, negative 2 times negative 4. Negative times a negative is a positive. 2 times 4 is 8. And then m times m squared. This is like m to the first times m squared. So when we add the exponents, we get m to the 1 plus 2 is 3. So m to the third. Okay. From here, we've got negative 2m times positive 1. Well, that's going to be negative 2m because anything times 1 is whatever you have. So negative 2m times 1, we get negative 2m. All right. So we've distributed that negative 2m to everything. So now you can't forget about this other part. You can't just ignore it. So from here, we got negative 3m squared, and we have to distribute it. Okay, so negative 3m squared times m. This is technically, because it doesn't have a number in front of it, there's a 1 right there. So it'd be negative 3 times 1. So we get negative 3. And then the m squared times the m. We add the exponents, so it'd be m to the third, because remember, there's technically a little 1 right there as the exponent. And then, so there's that one. Now we take negative 3m squared times 5. So negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. And then that m squared doesn't have anything to multiply with, so it's just going to come down. Okay, so that's the multiplying part. And again, when I look at it, there's no division, so I don't have to worry about that. And now I'm down to adding and subtracting. So when you get down to the adding and subtracting, you're combining like terms. So again, find your like terms. And so I'm going to look ahead and go ahead and put it in standard form. So I'm going to look for the terms that have the highest degree. Okay, so this positive 8m to the third, I'm going to look, is there another m to the third term? Well, there's one right here, so those will combine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So 8 minus 3, we get 5. And then remember, the last name stays the same, so it'd be 5m to the third. And then, okay, so we've done those, so you can mark them out. Oh no, I didn't mean to do that. You can mark them out once you're done with them, so that you know you've done it. And now we've got some m squared terms. So we got negative 6m squared, and that'll combine with this one that I tried to mark out a second ago. I apologize. And so when you have negative 6 minus 15, make sure you don't ignore the sign there, you get negative 21. And then I'm going to bring down the m squared that goes with that. And so I'm done with those. So now I can actually mark it out. And then that negative 2m's left, and there's nothing else to combine with it. And so there we go. Now, if I didn't look ahead and I did the m squared terms first, I'd have to switch it around so that the m to the third term is first. Because remember, when you put it in standard form, you always want to list it from highest degree to lowest. All right, so now we got one more that we'll do just to make sure that we're good. And this one's a doozy. So I wanted to show you one that kind of is a little step up. Okay, so same story. Go through your order of operations. There's nothing in the parentheses that's like terms that'll combine, so we're good there. Exponents won't simplify. So we've got to look at the multiplication. We've got the 15t times this whole parentheses, and there's just one plus sign, so that means we just have two terms. So we've got that term and that term. So we're going to distribute that to each term. And then we have negative 2y times this, and there's just two terms there too. So I'm going to distribute that, okay? This one might be one where it'll be helpful to go to the side, at least to begin with, to kind of see what's going on. So when I take the 15t times the 10y to the third t to the fifth, that'll help you organize it so you're not looking at the whole problem. So you're going to do 15 times 10. So that'd be 150. Then you take the t times this. So remember, the like bases are the ones you multiply. So this y to the third, it doesn't have anything to multiply with, so it comes over. So you have t times t to the fifth. Remember, you add their exponents. So 1 plus 5 would be t to the sixth. Okay, so there's that one. Now we take the 15t times the 5y squared t. So 15 times 5, I'm going to just write it over here. 15 times 5 is positive 75. And then t times the y squared t. That y squared has nothing to multiply with. So again, it comes over. T times t. Add the exponents, so it'd be t squared. Okay. And then that's that one. And so now we've got to do this one. We got negative 2y, and again, you can go to the side if you need to, times y t squared. So I'm distributing it. So negative 2 times, well, there's nothing in front of this, so it's a 1. So it'd be negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And then y times y is y squared. And then that t squared has nothing to multiply with, so it comes down. And then we have the negative 2y times the positive 4y squared. So we got negative 2 times 4, which is negative 8. And then y times y squared, there's a 1 right there. So you add them. So it'd be y to the third. You add the exponents. Okay. And then from there, you look at what you've got, which is a mess, and you look to see if they have like terms. And so remember, the like terms, the first part, the coefficient is like the first part of it. Anything behind that is the last part. The last part has to match up exactly to be like terms. And so we do have that here. This 75 y squared t squared is a like term with this one, because notice the back side of it, the last name of it is exactly the same. Okay, so we will be combining those, but nothing else is a like term. So those other terms will just come down. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down my 150 y to the third t to the sixth. And then I'm going to go ahead and combine these. So remember, you combine the front numbers. So 75 minus 2 is a positive 73. And then remember, you just bring down the last name of it. And then that negative 8y to the third doesn't have anything to combine with, so it just comes down. And then nothing else will combine, and so we're done. All right, please, please, please make sure you remember to ask me questions if you have questions.